With the next session for the day, the fifth edition of Green Literature Festival, we have a film screening, Pack That Perished by ATREE. Direction, script, and voice-over by Mr. Siddharth Kulkarni, produced by Talescope Pictures and Grasslands Trust. A sneak peek into the nature film, starting with a piece of uncanny news. Back in the month of March, a pack that the Grasslands Trust was tracking, revealing a canine distemper virus, CTV, that gave a painful death to this beauty of nature, a serious threat to the canine of Grasslands. Talescope Pictures as a filming partner and the Grasslands Trust as a knowledge partner worked together for the complete understanding and to lay out the awareness needed for conservation of the Indian grey wolves, an apex predator of Indian savanna grasslands. Canine distemper virus is a fatal virus that affects wildlife universally. The film highlights the impacts of this virus on the endangered wolves. With entire packs being wiped out, the film shows how local extinction is an imminent threat. And yes, with your permission and a great round of applause, may I take this opportunity to invite the speakers, the panelists for the session onto the stage. Let's give them a great round of applause, everyone. Mr. Vanak is the Director of the Center for Policy Design at the Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment. His work spans savanna and grassland ecosystems, human-wildlife coexistence, One Health, disease ecology, and conservation policy. He works at the Science Policy Practice Interface on land conservation and restoration, livelihoods and human well-being in India and globally. I request you to kindly join me on the stage, and can we please give him a great round of applause, everyone. May I also request our next guest, Ms. Anuja Malhotra, to please join me on the stage. Ms. Anuja Malhotra is a policy professional at the Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment, working to bridge ecological science, livelihoods, and governance with a focus on grasslands, ecosystem restoration, and evidence-based public policy in India. A huge round of applause for Ms. Anuja Malhotra. All right, we have both the speakers right here on the stage. I request you to kindly take over.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. Is that working? And thank you all for being here today on a Saturday afternoon. We are very excited to share our work with all of you. We represent a group of researchers, practitioners, storytellers, grassroots organizations who are working on regenerating and protecting India's grasslands and savannas. It might not be very obvious to everybody what we mean when we talk about Indian grasslands and savannas, because most of us tend to think about the African idea of a savanna when we hear that word. And we think that this film will be a great gateway into imagining what those landscapes look like, what is the visual narrative that's there when you think of those terms. The story is about an Indian wolf pack, but what we would like you to and invite you to take note of is the complexity and the landscapes that they harbor. So we will screen the film, it's a short film, and we'll then go into a round of Q&A, and we would love for all of you to engage with us and ask us questions. So
we're just trying to sort this out. Give us a couple of more minutes. But in the meantime, I'll ask you a couple of questions, and hopefully we can have some engagement. Fine. So when you heard the word savanna, and then Anuja mentioned, all of you thought of African savannas. What did you imagine you'll find in Indian savannas? Any takers? Yeah, you can put your hand up and shout in the back if you want. No? Any takers? What kind of animals do you expect to find in the Indian savanna? Yes.
I'm done in Santosh. I was posted there. Okay. So you got hyenas, you got leopards, you got jackals, and you got vultures, uh, and a plethora of deer. I've seen a lot of them, especially towards Nasik and the areas adjoining Nasik and towards the Nasik Pune and Nasik Mumbai areas.
On stage, and also we can have a conversation about this. So, you know, there's an interesting sort of, you know, India is really rich in terms of the types of biological diversity it has, because its situation, its location, and its geological history. So, as most of you know, the Indian subcontinent, you know, traveled across the ocean to hit the Gondwana, the mainland, and thus created the Himalayas. But on its travel, it used to be part of Africa at one point of time. And so those African realm elements were part of India. Therefore, you have lots of antelope. In fact, at one point of time, we used to have giraffes and so on as well. We still have rhinoceros. We had a lot of shared elements between Africa and India. Some persist, some have gone away, some have been brought back, such as the African cheetah, to try and regain its place under the Indian savanna sun. And therefore, you know, we want to try and imagine what the Indian savanna looks like, and hopefully you'll get some glimpses while watching this film. It's a really good insight into the landscapes that we work in, Maharashtra in particular, but not just Maharashtra. In fact, if you traveled outside Bangalore, a lot of Bangalore itself, there are some really old photos of Cubbon Park. And Cubbon Park was an open savanna. It wasn't this heavily wooded landscape that you see now. It was very open, grassy meadow. A lot of the areas outside Bangalore were used as grazing grounds. Some of them still are. Of course, the urbanization has overtaken them, and our need to see greenery in a certain way has sort of transformed the way we see our natural habitats as well. Okay? So then what happens is we want to plant trees everywhere. But semi-arid landscapes such as what you see in the Deccan Plateau, around Bangalore, Kolar, northern Karnataka, are naturally treeless. That means, or sparsely treed. And the types of trees that you get are very different from the types of trees that you'll find in the Western Ghats regions. A sort of problem that we've had is that we've tried to then put our imagination of what a landscape should be like and try to impose it on that landscape. So thankfully, I think we've got our screen back, so I can stop yabbering and we can continue watching the show. Thanks.
Savanna grasslands. Maharashtra has always been home to them, providing prized breeding grounds for these priceless canines. This particular pack was a very lively group with remarkable pack dynamics. For over a year, they gave an incredible peek into their life cycle, even bringing in a new generation in a place they call home. Hence, their downfall was heartbreaking, especially for the people who had been observing them.
म्हणजे जे आम्ही इतके दिवस ऑब्झर्व करतोय अँड इट्स अबाउट टू गो नाव. त्याच्या आधीचे ते डिस्ट्रेस कॉल्स नाही ऐकू शकत.
CDV has been around for a very long time. There are outbreaks where you see them, you see the incidence, the occurrence is higher at particular times of the year. Otherwise, I mean, the virus has been prevalent and around for decades.
जशी कोविडची लाट येते तशी त्याची एक लाट येते आणि ज्यामध्ये वुल्फ सगळ्या कॅनेट्सला त्याचा धोका राहतो.
In CDV, mortality is almost 100%. Once it's in that locality, it will spread very quickly.
So what's really important to know is that it affects animals and it doesn't affect people, and that is why it is not given as much importance.
Wolves we've been tracking since 2007 or 8.
कारण वुल्सला बरेच प्रॉब्लेम्स येत आहेत जे आपण बघितल्याशिवाय किंवा काहीतरी डॉक्युमेंट केल्याशिवाय ते कोणाला पण प्रूव्ह करू शकत नाही.
There are multiple problems.
एक तर एक्सप्लॉयटेशन ऑफ हॅबिटॅट म्हणजे मास डिस्ट्रक्शन होत आहे, डेव्हलपमेंट येतात, नवीन प्लॉटिंग स्कीम्स येतात ग्रासलँडवर.
But the problem that comes the closest to them is obviously free-ranging dogs.
The free-ranging or feral dog is the one which does not have direct dependence on a human feeding it. It's just very, very difficult to capture free-ranging dogs in open landscapes or even in forest areas.
There's always a disease transfer that happens in between dogs and wolves. We have seen packs getting wiped out before, and the next pack would be found within a couple of years. But this is totally stopped for last 4-5 years because of the kind of roads that we have built in. These populations are getting isolated. Any deadly disease like CDV or rabies has potential to wipe out the entire population because it spreads quickly. We may actually see local extinction of animals.
4 ते 5 नक्की गेले. बाकी बॉडीज मिळाल्या नाही, सो काउंट काहीच सांगू शकत नाही. हे आता आम्ही बघितलं म्हणून आम्हाला कळालं, पण असे किती पॅक्स वाईपआउट झालेत हे कोणाला माहीत पण नाही.
यामध्ये सगळ्यात पहिले अल्फा मेलची डेथ झालेली आम्हाला बातमी कळाली. त्यानंतर बाकी लांडगे दिसायचे बंद झाले होते त्या एरियामध्ये. आम्ही बरेच दिवस फॉलो किंवा सगळ्या एरिया बघितला, पण एक पिल्लू आणि एक फिमेल कंटिन्यू दिसत होते. त्यानंतर डायरेक्ट एक दिवस रेस्क्यू कॉल आला. केजमध्ये स्टेबल करून आम्ही ॲम्ब्युलन्स घेऊन निघालो. त्यावेळेस अर्ध्या रस्त्यात आलो आणि अचानक पिल्लू खूप जोरात ओरडलं. इवन टेबलवर जेव्हा ट्रीटमेंट चालू होती त्यावेळेस त्याने जोरात आऊट केलं होतं.
And then he was getting seizures, and he had 2 seizures, and then at the second one he perished. It's a horrible death. The animal is completely out of control. You know, it's like having a seizure, and it's frothing and foaming, and it's a really horrid death for an animal.
Wolves were primarily hunters. They're the apex predators in the food chain. But for last few years, their dependence is growing more on cattle carcasses and recently on poultry waste.
कार्कसेस आणि पोल्ट्रीवर हायना, जॅकल, फॉक्सेस, जंगल कॅट सगळेच राहतात. आत्ता ग्रासलँडमधले जे कार्निव्हर्स आहेत ते सगळेच पोल्ट्री किंवा कार्कसेसवर येतात. तो सेम फूड सोर्स असल्यामुळे त्याच्यातनं ट्रान्समिशन होऊ शकतं. मोस्टली सलायवा म्हणजे लाईक इफ अ डॉग कम्स अँड टेक्स अ बाईट ऑफ द कार्कस आणि तिकडनंच वुल्फ किंवा जॅकल खाणार आहेत ते.
And if dogs form pack of substantial size, like more than 4-6 dogs, then they will attack anything that comes close to the carcass, even leopard, and chase it away and take over the carcass entirely. But over the den sites, our observation is exactly opposite. When wolves have young ones, at that time they're very protective. They're actively biting the dogs. Otherwise, they'll avoid any kind of competition or any kind of risk of injury.
पलीकडनं 2 कुत्रे त्यांना बघत होते कंटिन्यू आणि ते ह्यांच्यावर चार्ज झाले. आणि या साईडनं अल्फा फिमेल, सब ॲडल्ट फिमेल आणि अल्फा मेल हे तिघं एकत्र पिल्लांच्या रक्षणासाठी त्यांच्या अंगावर धावून गेले. आणि हे इंटरॅक्शन सगळं आमच्या समोर झालेलं आहे आणि यामुळेच तर CDV पसरतो.
सो ऑब्झर्वेशनप्रमाणे पहिले आम्हाला ट्विचिंग दिसलं. डेनच्या बाहेर बसून कंटिन्युअसली ट्विच करत होता.
There's eye discharge. There are pustules on the underbelly. You can see hardening near the nose. There's hardening on foot pad as well, but that's not visible. These are some of the signs that are rather difficult to spot on field. What we observed consistently in this CDV outbreak was animals were getting tired and they were sitting constantly, and there is excess salivation, so they kept on licking their faces a lot.
They are disoriented or uncoordinated, often landing up in road accidents and those kind of things. But once it starts showing nervous signs, which means the virus has basically gone to the head, and that's when it's almost at a point of no return. Treated early, the animal may still survive and in fact have immunity for life.
So alpha female अजून जिवंत आहे.
The pack had an alpha female who was elder to all the other wolves. We can say that at some point of time she was exposed to CDV before and she developed immunity for it, and it stayed with her. That's how she got through.
So vaccinating wild animals is, it does not make sense.
It's very difficult trapping wild animals twice. आणि हे वॅक्सिन लिटरली 3 weeks नंतर परत द्यायला लागतं. जे फर्स्ट डोस त्याच्यानंतर 3 weeks नी सेकंड डोस.
It's too resource heavy. It is not implementable. While in an ideal world it sounds great, it is not executable on field.
मोठ्या नगरपालिका किंवा दौंडसारख्या ठिकाणी सुद्धा इव्हन कुत्र्यांची समस्या असेल तर या गल्लीतनं कुत्रे उचलायचे आणि लांब फॉरेस्ट एरियामध्ये कुठेही नेऊन सोडून द्यायचे. हा सगळ्यात मोठा प्रॉब्लेम आहे. वाईल्ड लाईफ सँच्युरीजमध्ये सुद्धा फेरल डॉग्स एंट्री करतात आहेत. त्याचं कारणच आहे.
I think there need to be policy level changes with respect to how dog populations are managed in urban areas, peri-urban areas, rural areas, and forest areas. So there is treatment for canine distemper virus because there are tests available, accurate, reliable tests that are available for CDV. They can be saved, and especially when you're talking about species like wolves that are already threatened in this landscape, every single one counts.
दुःखद तर खूप आहे, पण यातनं आपल्याला इथंच न थांबता ह्याचीच ऊर्जा घेऊन इतर लहानग्यांना वाचवण्यासाठी काय करता येईल याच ऊर्जेवर आम्ही पुढे आहोत.
नाही, उलट अजून जास्त मोटिवेट झालं. बाकीच्या पॅक्सला प्रोटेक्ट करायचं आहे. एक पॅक गेला म्हणून यू कॅन्ट जस्ट सिट डाऊन. यू हॅव मेनी मोर पॅक्स, यू हॅव टू मॉनिटर देम.
Well, that was the film, the nature film Pack That Perished. I need to highlight that this film has also won Nature in Focus Award. So let's all give it up to the filmmakers who have joined us right here. Once again, may I please invite you onto the stage because we have a token of appreciation on behalf of the 5th edition of the GLF being presented to you. And I request Mr. Chintan, journalist and literary critic, to kindly do the honors of presenting the goodies. Please join me on the stage. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a thunderous applause for all the efforts that they've put in to capture these moments and to convey this pressing issue, this concern, to a wider audience.